Hi, everybody, and welcome to this episode of the Modern Web Podcast. I'm so excited because I don't feel like we've done this enough, but have two amazing people from the Angular core team who will be talking about latest updates in Angular today. My name is Tracy. You can follow me on Twitter, Lady Leet, and we have Hans Larsen. So Hans, you want to introduce yourself?
Hey, Tracy. I'm Hans. I've been on the Angular team for I don't know, 3 years, 4 years maybe, since the beta days of 2.0. Yeah, I used to work on the material, and mostly I've been working on the CLI 2 years, making it through 1.0 and then to what it is today. And so, yeah, having a lot of fun.
You can follow Hans on Twitter at HansL@work. So Hans Larsen, Hans L at work. And then we also have Ben Lesh, which you guys are all probably familiar with since we play all the time. So Ben is obviously on the author of RxJS and also on the Angular core team as well. Hey, Ben.
Hi. I've been on the Angular core team for what? 8 months?
2 weeks?
Like 2 weeks? 2 weeks, yeah.
No,
2 weeks.
what?
Just kidding.
2 months? 3 months? 6 months? I don't remember.
It's been like 8 months, I think.
Yeah.
All right. Well, and I also just got back from keynoting Angular Taiwan, which I was so excited about to see the Taiwanese community. And I have these for you, which I will give you next time I see you.
Sweet.
But they are Angular Kung Fu books.
That's awesome.
It's very exciting.
Cool.
Yes.
I know Kung Fu.
Well, there you go. Now you can know Angular Kung Fu as well. So let's go quickly through this and just why don't you all guys give me an update on kind of like what's been going on? What should people be excited about? What should people be running away from?
What should we be running away from?
Sure, Ben, you want to start?
I don't know what they should run away from. The lion's share of the work being done right now on Angular and everything that's coming up is Ivy. And so on the front of it, like people like new features, and in new feature wise, it's not that exciting because really what it is it's a complete revamp of Angular's compiler to compile the templates and everything down into something much, 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 much smaller, and by making everything inside of it tree shakeable. So if you're using any Angular feature, it's included, and any Angular features you're not included get shaken away by tree shaking, which is essentially static analysis that goes through and says, are you using this? No? Okay, then get rid of it, in a nutshell. But that's the big thing that everyone has to look forward to, and that's what everybody's been working on. Then after that, we're going to work on more fun new features that are enabled by this architecture. But
what about you, Hans? I mean, Hans, just remember, are you doing CDK or CLI now, or both?
I'm doing CLI, and CDK is more material. It's component dev kit. But I'm doing Schematics, which is it's a library to help you build generators kind of workflows where you can change your project. You can generate new components. You can refactor your code, and there's a lot of features that are coming up with that. And I'm working in general with the CLI and the tooling team. So I'm actually not working on Ivy, which we're one of the few people in the team that doesn't work on Ivy directly, but we're working to support Ivy in the long run so that everybody can use it easily. And the major things that we're working on right now is Bazel support inside the CLI. So if you don't know, Bazel is an entire build system, open sourced, built at Google, inside Google, and then open sourced. That has a lot of great advantages. Like it's faster. It can be it's faster to build once. It's faster to rebuild. It can be like mix and match multiple languages and multiple frameworks. And we're adding support for creating new projects with support for Bazel, and doing like builders so that you can use ng-build, ng-serve, and all those things using Bazel. And of course, Webpack will remain the default right now, but we're enabling people. Normally, like big enterprises are our main users of this. So we're working hard to support them and their use cases.
I'm so excited about that because again, Ben and everybody else is working on, less exciting things that are actually really exciting because we want everything to be smaller. But you get to work on things that I've been hearing a lot of people talking about lately, like schematics. People are really starting to, in the Angular community, really starting to talk about and say like, whoa, this is how you use schematics, et cetera. What are some of the cool, for people who don't know, what are some of the cool things that schematics enables, or cool things that you've seen schematics enable?
So I think the coolest thing, there's two cool tool features that we added in Angular 6 that really made a difference. It's basically ng-add and ng-update. They are both using schematics. They're both entirely made out of the schematics library. So ng-add basically look for libraries that support ng-add, and then change your project to add it, to add support for the library, add the configuration necessary for the library. One example is native script, which you will be able to have an existing Angular project and just ng-add native script, and it will configure your project, change your files, move your files around to make it a native script supported project right out of the box. And later on, like this enables really a set of features in the future that will really be exciting. Like when you do NGU, you could basically pick the libraries that you want. Like, oh, I want to deploy using Firebase. I want to have Angular material, and I want to have like native script support for mobile apps. And you just check a couple of boxes, and your project would be automatically configured for that. So that is really exciting. The other part that really is really great, the other command that we added using schematics was ng-update, which basically is a smarter way to like update your dependencies across major versions. And that adds, if the library supports it, like for example, material supports it, core supports it, and the CLI supports it, we have schematics that basically refactor your project to remove breaking changes and to fix your breaking changes so that you wouldn't even see that you are breaking, something is breaking between Angular 6 and 7, for example, or material 6 and 7. And so you just run ng-update material to the latest version, and automatically it would run all the refactors. And if you're using something that would have broken, the material schematics will change your project so that it doesn't break anymore.
And does it do that for like RxJS as well? So will it, for example, I guess from, I don't remember when it was, but is it like 5.5 to 6, right, Ben? Yeah. Like, will it just go and like type all the things for you?
So I think that RxJS was kind of the guinea pig for the first attempt at this, and it was a light attempt. Like we didn't automatically run the refactoring, for example, but it did automatically update packages and automatically install a backwards compatibility package. So it wasn't quite as aggressive as what could have been done, but it also, like, both of these ideas were kind of in their infancy too whenever we tried this.
Well, because I could totally see, like, wouldn't it be amazing if like all of a sudden all your imports change and it fixes all the crappy imports you're doing, and it goes and does all the piping, and it goes and moves everything that you were doing in, the module to like the individual component files or whatever.
Right, right. And I think that's the idea, is to have those things happen whenever.
So like ng update will enable that for RxJS users.
Yeah, definitely, definitely. Now the onus will of course be on me and probably a few helpers to come up with the code transforms and whatever to do those things if there's a 6 to 7 breaking changes. But we'll see. Seven isn't even written in stone yet, so.
So that's like also kind of scary in a sense, like as a developer, even though I love this idea because it's going to make the upgrade a lot easier, then all of a sudden I'm like, wait, I was doing my imports this way and it was supposed to be in the modules and now I can't find anything. So, I mean, Hans, how are you going to, how are people, ng update? I mean, are people really using it now? Is it kind of still in its test phases? And also, are people freaking out because now they have no idea what's going on in their apps?
Well, some people don't know what's going on in their apps without ng update, but that's not really honest. So I think your question is twofold. Like basically, what are the recommended best practices, and are people using it? People are definitely using it. We receive bug issues every week, like less and less, but we still have people with edge cases that like, oh, this wasn't expected, why, or feature request. So there's definitely a lot of people using it. As for the best practices, like how should you use it? I think to avoid stuff like you said, like, oh, I was in the middle of something. Well, you should commit your code before you actually run ng update. And ng update doesn't really, make a commit for you. So really, like once you run ng update, you should see exactly what it did. And libraries should probably tell the user also, like, oh, if this changed, like instead of doing this, you need to do that, so that once you update, the breaking change is there, so you need to look out for it. But and also the onus of the responsibility of fixing a breaking change or communicating it to the user through the schematic is on the library author. So if there's a breaking change in material that material forgot to fix on your code, then users might be in a state where it doesn't work afterward. And although these are for our libraries, we really try hard to find those and fix those. But some third-party libraries might just output a message saying like, oh, you need to do this, or just put a comment in your code saying, well, this line here looks like something that you want to change, but we don't know how to do that. So it's going to be more like a collaboration between the library and the application developers.
If you're a third-party library author too, like I would recommend like having a cycle where you don't, like if you deprecate something, or like have a deprecation cycle. So you like deprecate something for a major version and then release a major version that actually removes it. And during that process, have your own lint rules that you can provide that say things like, oh, you're doing things the deprecated way. Here's a lint error. You should do it this way. And ideally, the lint rule can also fix it. And we can run those fixes and prevent people from writing. Like, so both ways still work. But if you try to write it the deprecated way, you get warnings and lint errors, and you can automatically fix it.
I think RxJS is a really good example of that, where deprecated, operators, the operators import, and then like the compat library, and then it provided lint rules for users, so users could verify that their project was compliant, and then fixes for those rules. But it couldn't figure out 100% of its breaking because there was a lot of breaking between version 5 and 6. But at least it was communicating to the user like, oh, there is a breaking change, but we don't know how to fix it. You'll have to be like a little bit smarter than just a tool.
Right, right. And it's, I mean, but certainly the days of like, well, I posted on my documentation site that these things were changing, so people should know. Like,
yeah,
those days are over. Like, you can't do that anymore.
It doesn't work either.
Right.
And also, I don't think, and I could be completely wrong, but these things like a NG update, for example, I don't think any other technology has them. Am I wrong there? Or has this also been?
No, the only ones that have something like that is, well, the package manager, NPM and Yarn.
Mm-hmm.
They have an update, but it's only installing stuff. It doesn't actually run any code afterward that could check your project and make sure that it works.
I love that because I think it just makes, I always feel like the Angular team is trying to make development life a lot easier. Like they're always trying to figure out new, interesting ways to make development more accessible to people, which is really awesome.
Yeah.
I know when I first started doing development Angular, and even now, Angular is just like so easy to, get going and get productive. And, I'm sure a lot of other people feel that way about different frameworks, but Angular just gives me all the things. And, that kind of brings me to the, the CLI changes I've been seeing. So, the fact that the CLI is so much more just like, it just kind of like walks you through everything and really, it's like, is it like having a conversation with Hans, basically? Like Hans in a box, Hans in your terminal, like telling me all the things I need to do or giving me all the options.
We actually keep Hans in a box. It's a real thing.
Yeah. You know what? I really need to actually make like a custom Jack in a box, but like with a Hans that throws like CLI tips at you, like, oh my God, you did engineer wrong.
Yeah, that would be so great. I would totally, that would make me want to use Angular more. Hans in a box.
Yeah.
But maybe you can talk a little bit more about that, or is there anything exciting we need to know about that? Or just, it just comes out, spits out of your brain, all the things that people ask you, and then boom, it just ends up as prompts in the CLI.
Yeah. We're gonna add more prompts. We're definitely gonna add more prompts in the future. I think prompt is, well, it's the main feature that we added in 7.0. But I think it's not like, it can be used way more efficiently than that. But yeah, I would like to see a choose your own adventure kind of prompt, kind of workflow. Like you do NGNU my little app, and then it start asking you questions like, oh, do you want material? Do you want, like, do you have anything additional to add? And that I think that would really make the flow way better. And also, well, you probably heard of Angular Console, which is a graphical interface. It's really awesome. It's a graphical interface on top of the CLI essentially. And I would like to have like support for prompts there that are a little bit more involved too, like better descriptions, maybe with links to documentation, stuff that we cannot do easily on our side. But yeah, we're adding features now. I think the CLI is now at a point where we are adding features not for ourselves, but for like third-party developers, like schematics developers, builders, people who wants to do like, oh, I want to use something else instead of Jasmine, and I think we're at the point where people will see less and less features in the CLI itself, and more features that other people can use, which are going to make are going to be great for the user in the end, but the users won't see it directly.
Yeah, that's super cool. I mean, again, it's like a lot of the stuff that you all are doing. It's almost kind of like, I don't know if it's like by release or whatever, but you sort of have this, okay, tons of new features. Okay, we're going to focus on the internals. Okay, tons of new features. Okay, we're going to focus on the internals,
Yeah.
So, I mean, that kind of brings me back to, you know, Ben and the stuff that you're doing with Ivy. Of course, the question is always, and I know there's a website, but is Ivy ready yet? Is it?
No, but I can tell you this: when Ivy's ready, it's going to be pretty rock solid. I mean, there's a lot of work going into making sure that all existing tests pass, and making sure that it works with all of the, I don't even know, hundreds of thousands or hundreds or thousands of apps and compilation targets inside of Google and all of their tests. So there's by the time it's landed at the feet of the public, there's already been a lot of blood, sweat, and tears gone into making sure that it's not going to be their blood, sweat, and tears that is the cost. So, but it's like all hands on deck right now, just trying to, it's like the architecture's in there and it's done, and they're going through and they're finding, you know, what are called root causes for various test failures, and trying to get those things all ironed out before it goes out to everybody. I mean, technically you can compile with it now and it will work, I think, in most general cases, but you know, it's all the edge cases and all of the lesser used functionality and a lot of other stuff that like adds up to a lot of things that need to be ironed out and made sure they work properly.
So then also, did Minko just come in now that he joined the team and just like white knight it? Like, hey, I just did all the work for you that you've been trying to do for 5 months.
Oh yeah, Minko's here, and we've actually, that's the reason I'm in this podcast, is because I don't have to do anything now because Minko's here.
Oh, I love it. So awesome. So
he's pretty great.
Yes. I love Minko. I love him so much. Yes. Oh,
and we have another new member on our team, Andrew. So Andrew's pretty awesome. Have you met Andrew yet? You'll have to meet him. He sits by me.
Oh, that's cool. Well, I will see you all next week anyways, but he doesn't get a Kung Fu book.
Okay.
I could only steal a few from the conference. Or it was given. It's Kevin's present to you guys, but so you know, last question is, Ben, everybody obviously wants to know latest on RxJS 7, and of course I just said, somebody asked which is the, you know, what is the biggest feature, and I just said, look, everything's just going to be smaller.
That's the biggest feature in RxJS 7, is everything's smaller. So the when on that is, it's unfortunately backburnered right now for Ivy because it's all hands on deck for Ivy. So it's very, very close. The experimental branch is there and it can be built, and you could go use it if you wanted to go try it out. But there's going to be this phase of looking at this experimental branch, getting it in alpha, seeing what people think of it, seeing if the architecture is working out. It might end up that it needs to be rewritten in a different way before we get 7 out. But that'll be the major focus after Ivy is out and released. To which I'm just helping. There's my involvement in Ivy is pretty much going through and helping find bugs and occasionally fixing small ones, like Alex Rickabaugh and other people that have been in the compiler more heavily. Kara Erickson especially are doing more of the heavy lifting, and I'm like their support
team. You're just poking at them.
Yeah, I'm just poking at it like this.
He's rubber ducking. He's really good at it.
Actually, don't know where I can't. Anyways, I'm just gonna poke you through the screen.
There's some changes, like the router stuff has been rewritten to be more reactive. Are you poking me right now? So that's been rewritten to be more reactive by Jason Aiden, and I know this because, of course, a lot of that stuff comes and gets bounced off me. So that's good, and the API isn't really changing, but it's going to enable us to refactor it later into being even more reactive and having better reactive features. And you know, especially once RxJS 7 is out and everything's smaller, that'll be good for everybody as well. So it's another bit
Well, I also really hope that, well, you know, we'll end this podcast on that nice note, but I hope that everybody listening, especially if you're in the Asia region, comes to Angular Taiwan. So Hans and Ben, y'all are coming with me, right? Angular Taiwan next year?
That sounds good.
That sounds great. I've never been to Taiwan, so.
I love Taiwan. But, you know, all you do in Taiwan is you eat. This is the only thing you do there.
Sweet.
Yeah.
That sounds good.
Yeah. So we'll
Taiwan
bring
is food.
Bismol for you guys, just in case. But
does my ability to count in Cantonese actually translate there?
no, count first, and I'll tell you.
Wait, so it's yet yi sam say
no,
but cow.
That's that's Cantonese. That's not Mandarin.
Oh,
Hans, you'll be able to speak, right? Since your wife is Chinese.
Right. Yes. I just came back from China.
Leading into that, and then you asked me to count. If you could have just told me no because it's Cantonese.
Yeah.
Taking me into counting.
I wanted to see how similar it was.
No, it's not. There's a few that are similar.
Wait, so Hans, you're not at NG China, because I know NG China is happening like next week or something.
No. I went to China for vacation, for visiting actually my in-laws.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the question came how many words I knew in Mandarin, and I basically answered like, if I can count to 1 million, does that make 1 million words?
Yeah.
So there you go. I know 1 million words.
You know, Elliot is so funny. He's like, hey, it's so weird, Tracy. You talk to me in Chinese in your sleep sometimes. And I'm like, what do I say? And he's like, you say like something, sama. And I was like, oh, like sama, right? And I was like, oh, do I say like ni zai gan sama, which means like, what are you doing? And he's like, yeah, that's what you say. I'm like, oh yeah, okay.
You were not dreaming.
That's so funny though. Like, okay, I'm speaking in Chinese in my sleep, but whatevs. Weird things about.
It'd be weird if I did that.
Yeah, I can tell you some stories. Like one time I started speaking in Taiwanese, which I can't even really speak in Taiwanese, but I guess I can. It's like this like blocker in your mind, you know. Okay, so now that everybody knows how much Chinese and Cantonese we all know, I wanted to wrap up this Modern Web podcast to say thank you so much for listening. Again, you can follow Hans at Hansel at Work, and then Ben at Ben Lesh on Twitter. You can find me on Twitter at Lady Lee. We love to welcome new developers to Angular and RxJS. So if anybody is ever interested in getting involved, feel free to ping us, and we're super happy to talk. Thanks everyone for joining.
Thank you.